History has a junk drawer, and today we are opening the cursed section. Strange books nobody can read, Roman objects nobody can explain, stone balls people carved with ridiculous precision, and a few artifacts so suspicious they practically walk into the room wearing fake glasses. Some are real mysteries, some might be hoaxes. All of them make the past look way less organized than museums pretend. 1. The Ubaid lizard. Men. Around 7,000 years ago in what is now Iraq, people of the Ubaid culture made little clay figures that look alarmingly like humanoid reptiles. Big almond eyes, long skulls, strange poses, and in some cases a lizard-like mother holding a lizard-like baby, as if she is calmly starring in the world's first alien family portrait. Archaeologists usually explain them as ritual figures, symbolic bodies, or stylized humans, because ancient reptile daycare is not a category in most museum catalogs. But the real problem is the confidence. These figures do not look like accidental blobs. They look intentional, carefully shaped, and deeply meaningful to people whose religion, myths, and private weirdness are mostly gone. So we are left staring at prehistoric lizard parents, pretending we are the normal ones. 2. Roman dodecahedrons. The Romans left us roads, aqueducts, legal systems, concrete, and then, just to be annoying, hundreds of little bronze 12-sided objects with holes in every face and knobs on every corner. Roman dodecahedrons have been found across Europe, mostly in the northwestern provinces of the empire. But no ancient writer bothered to say, by the way, here is what the weird bronze desk toy is for. Thanks, Pliny. Very helpful. Theories are everywhere. Candle holders, religious symbols, measuring tools, knitting aids, dice, rangefinders, children's toys, fancy status objects, or possibly the ancient Roman version of buying a gadget online and never using it. The holes are different sizes, but the objects show no obvious wear. So either they were ceremonial, symbolic, or the Romans invented something so obvious to them that nobody explained it. Which is how history trolls us across 2,000 years. 3. The Coso artifact. The Coso artifact is the perfect example of why archaeology and junk drawers should never be left alone together. In 1961, rock hunters in California cut open what they thought was an ancient geode and found what looked like a modern spark plug inside. Naturally, people immediately shouted about lost civilizations, ancient machines, and time travelers who apparently drove a very unreliable Ford. The dramatic claim was that the stone around it was hundreds of thousands of years old. The boring but important answer is that it was almost certainly a 1920s champion spark plug encased in a concretion, not a true ancient geode. Concretions can form surprisingly fast around metal objects. So the mystery is not ancient technology. The mystery is how fast people saw a rusty spark plug and built an entire prehistoric garage around it. 4. The Voynich Manuscript. The Voynich Manuscript is what would happen if a medieval monk, a botanist, a codebreaker, and a mushroom had a meeting and nobody took minutes. This strange illustrated book, usually dated to the early 15th century, is filled with unknown writing, bizarre plant drawings, naked figures in strange pools, astrology-looking diagrams, and pages that feel like a wizard's medical textbook from a universe where spinach has tentacles. Experts have studied it for over a century. Cryptographers, linguists, historians, computer scientists, and extremely confident internet detectives have all taken a swing. No one has cracked it. Some think it is a cipher, some think it encodes a lost language, some think it is elaborate nonsense. The cruel part is that the writing looks structured enough to mean something. It sits there, politely unreadable, like the world's most smug notebook. 5. Quimbaya. Airplanes. The Quimbaya artifacts are small gold figures from Colombia, and some of them have long bodies, delta-shaped wings, tails, and a shape that makes modern people immediately whisper, "That is a jet." Ancient goldsmiths of the Quimbaya culture probably meant to depict birds, insects, fish, or mythic creatures because pre-Columbian Colombia was not secretly running an air force with tiny gold fighter planes. But the silhouettes are genuinely strange. Some hobbyists even made enlarged model versions that flew, which is a fun experiment and also not proof that ancient pilots were requesting runway clearance in the jungle. The real mystery is artistic intention. Were these stylized animals, sacred symbols, or elite ornaments from a worldview we barely understand? Whatever they were, they look modern enough to make your brain glitch for half a second, which is exactly why they refuse to leave the internet alone. 6. The Baghdad Battery. The Baghdad Battery is a clay jar with a copper cylinder and an iron rod inside, discovered in the region of modern Iraq. To normal people, that sounds like someone dropped plumbing parts into pottery. To mystery fans, it sounds like ancient Mesopotamia invented batteries before breakfast. If filled with acidic liquid, the setup could produce a small electrical current. That part is real enough to be interesting. The problem is purpose. Was it actually used for electroplating? A ritual object? A storage vessel? A scroll container? A medical device? A very dramatic container for extremely disappointing vinegar? We do not know. No wires, no clear electrical equipment, and no ancient manual saying, "Charge your temple lamp here." So it sits in the strange zone between plausible ancient ingenuity and modern imagination doing parkour over the evidence. 7. Klerksdorp spheres. Klerksdorp spheres are little round or oval objects found in South African rock deposits that are billions of years old, and some have grooves around them like tiny ancient cricket balls. This sounds impossible, which is exactly why they became famous. The wild version says they are manufactured artifacts from a civilization older than complex life itself, which would be awkward for biology, geology, and basically every textbook not printed on tinfoil. The scientific explanation is far less cinematic. They are natural concretions formed by geological processes. But here's the thing. Even when nature is responsible, the objects still look weird. They have symmetry, ridges, and that irritating someone-made-me energy. They are not proof of 3-billion-year-old engineers. They are proof that rocks can sometimes produce objects that look like they are auditioning for a conspiracy documentary. 8. The Antikythera Mechanism. The Antikythera Mechanism is one of those artifacts that makes you want to apologize to the ancient Greeks for underestimating them. Found in a shipwreck near the Greek island of Antikythera, this corroded bronze machine contained an unbelievably complex system of gears. It could predict astronomical positions, eclipses, calendar cycles, and possibly track athletic games. In other words, while many people imagine the ancient world as sandals and vibes, someone built a hand-powered cosmic calculator. The really unsettling part is not just that it existed. It is that nothing else quite like it has survived from the same period, which makes it feel like finding one smashed laptop in a Roman ruin and no chargers anywhere. We know a lot more now thanks to scans and reconstructions, but its maker, workshop, full design, and lost relatives remain beautifully frustrating mysteries. 9. The Maine Penny. In 1957, a small silver Norse coin was found at an indigenous archaeological site in Maine. And yes, that is exactly the kind of object that makes historians reach for coffee. The coin dates to the 11th century, around the era when Norse people were active in the North Atlantic and had a settlement at Lonso Meadows in Newfoundland. So does this mean Vikings were personally shopping in Maine? Not necessarily. The coin may have traveled through indigenous trade networks long after leaving Norse hands. That explanation is more likely and honestly more interesting, because it reveals a continent connected by exchange routes long before European maps understood what was happening. Still, one tiny coin in the wrong place is enough to make the neat classroom version of history start sweating through its tweed jacket. 10. The Copper Scroll. The Copper Scroll is part of the Dead Sea Scrolls family, but instead of being written on parchment like a normal ancient text with basic manners, it was engraved on thin sheets of copper. Even stranger, it does not read like scripture. It reads like a treasure inventory. It lists hiding places for enormous amounts of gold, silver, vessels, and sacred objects, with directions so specific and yet so useless that it feels like an ancient side quest designed by someone who hated players. Scholars still debate whether the treasure was real, symbolic, exaggerated, or already stolen long before anyone modern showed up with a shovel. The scroll had to be cut apart to read, because copper does not gently unroll after 2,000 years. So we have a metal treasure map, buried in the desert, pointing to riches that nobody can find. History really does enjoy being dramatic. 11. The dog. Figurines. Dog figurines come from Japan's Jomon period, and some are thousands of years old. They have wide bodies, strange faces, exaggerated features, and in famous examples, huge goggle-like eyes that make them look like tiny astronauts who got lost on the way to a moon landing. Obviously, archaeologists do not think ancient Japan was full of clay space travelers. The more grounded theories connect Dogū to fertility, healing rituals, protection, shamanic practices, or symbolic representations of bodies and spirits. Many were intentionally broken, which suggests ritual use rather than casual decoration. But the designs are so surreal that modern viewers cannot stop projecting science fiction onto them. That is the funny thing about ancient art. If we understand the symbolism, it is religion. If we do not, suddenly everyone is wearing a spacesuit. 12. The Phaistos. Disc. The Phaistos disc is a fired clay disc from Minoan Crete, covered on both sides with symbols pressed into a spiral. It looks ancient, organized, and deeply smug about not being readable. Discovered in 1908, it contains dozens of repeated signs including heads, shields, plants, tools, and strange little figures. The symbols were stamped into the clay, which makes it feel weirdly like prehistoric printing, except nobody can agree what it says, what language it records, or whether it is even true writing in the way we understand it. Maybe it is a hymn. Maybe it is a calendar. Maybe it is a game. Maybe it is a religious text. Maybe some Minoan official invented bureaucracy with extra mystery sauce. The disc is real, famous, and still undeciphered. It is basically the ancient world's most beautiful, password-incorrect screen. 13. The Baigong pipes. The Baigong pipes are a set of pipe-like formations near Mount Baigong in China, close to a salty lake, and they became famous because some people claimed they were ancient metal pipes made before humans should have been making metal pipes there. Which is exactly the kind of sentence that makes the internet start stretching before a conspiracy workout. The tubes appear embedded in rock and run through the landscape in ways that look engineered. But researchers have suggested natural explanations, including mineralized tree roots and geological processes that can create pipe-like structures. The mystery is not helped by the location, the desert scenery, and the fact that mysterious pipes leading to a lake sounds like the opening act of a lost civilization documentary. Are they ancient plumbing? Probably not. Are they creepy looking enough to cause arguments? Absolutely. 14. Stone spheres of Costa Rica. In Costa Rica, hundreds of stone spheres sit like giant prehistoric marbles, some almost perfectly round and weighing many tons. They were made by the Dikis culture, but their exact purpose remains debated. That is historian language for, we have ideas but nobody left a sticky note. They may have marked status, territory, alignments, ceremonial spaces, or elite power. The wild part is the craftsmanship. Making a huge stone ball is not easy. You cannot just slap a boulder and say, "Round enough, boss." These were shaped with patience, skill, and a very serious commitment to geometry in the jungle. Many were moved, damaged, or taken from their original context because modern people saw priceless heritage and thought, this would look great on a lawn. Now we admire them, but the original message has been scrambled like a stone Wi-Fi signal. 15. The Piri Reis map. The Piri Reis map, drawn in 1513 by an Ottoman admiral, is one of the most famous maps in history because part of it appears to show lands in the Atlantic with details that feel surprisingly advanced. The spicy claim is that it shows Antarctica before Antarctica was officially discovered. That is almost certainly not what scholars think. The southern landmass is more likely a distorted version of South America, legendary southern lands, or copied material from earlier maps. But the real map is still fascinating. Piri Reis said he used multiple sources, including Portuguese charts and maps connected to Columbus. So what we have is a 16th century information remix, stitched together from exploration, rumor, cartographic tradition, and imperial ambition. It is not proof of ancient Antarctic GPS. It is proof that old maps were sometimes brilliant, messy, and confidently wrong in very expensive ink. 16. The London Hammer. The London Hammer is a simple-looking iron hammer encased in rock found in Texas, and it became famous because some claim the surrounding stone was hundreds of millions of years old. If true, that would mean someone was doing hardware repairs before dinosaurs had the decency to exist, which would be a scheduling problem. The more reasonable explanation is that the hammer is a relatively modern tool surrounded by a mineral concretion, not proof of prehistoric carpenters. Objects can become encased in hardened mineral deposits much faster than people expect, especially in the right conditions. Still, the object is a perfect mystery machine artifact because it looks so ordinary. Not a golden idol, not a strange inscription, just a hammer. The kind of thing that says, "I was fixing a fence," while the internet screams, "Time traveler." Honestly, the hammer has had a bigger career than most actual archaeologists. 17. The Rohonc Codex. The Rohonc Codex is a mysterious manuscript associated with Hungary, filled with hundreds of pages of unknown symbols and strange illustrations showing battles, religious scenes, and figures that seem Christian, Islamic, and possibly other traditions all mashed together like medieval symbolism had a blender accident. The writing uses far more characters than most alphabets, and for over 200 years, scholars and codebreakers have argued about whether it is a real script, a cipher, a constructed language, or an elaborate hoax. Nobody has produced a widely accepted translation. The artwork looks meaningful, the layout looks intentional, and the text absolutely refuses to behave. It is the kind of book that makes experts squint, amateurs overconfident, and everyone else wonder why mysterious manuscripts always look like they know more than we do. If books could smirk, this one would need its own portrait. 18. The Fuente Magna Bowl. The Fuente Magna Bowl is a large stone vessel from Bolivia that became famous because some claimed it contains writing resembling ancient Mesopotamian cuneiform. And yes, that would be a spectacular historical grenade if it were proven. A Sumerian-looking inscription in the Andes would imply contact across oceans long before the accepted timeline, which is exactly why responsible scholars treat the claim very carefully. The object's discovery history is messy, the interpretation is highly disputed, and mainstream archaeology does not accept it as proof of ancient Sumerians casually boating to Bolivia with office supplies. But as a mystery story, it is irresistible. A stone bowl, strange marks, a possible script, and a location that makes no sense if the dramatic reading is true. It is either misunderstood, misidentified, or one of the most inconvenient bowls ever to enter a museum conversation. 19. The Jian of Gujian. The Sword of Gujian is not mysterious because nobody knows what it is. We know it is a Chinese bronze sword associated with King Gujian of Yue, found in a tomb in Hubei province. The mystery is how ridiculously well it survived. After more than 2,000 years in a damp tomb, the blade was still sharp, beautifully decorated, and almost completely free of corrosion. That is not normal. Most ancient metal objects come out of the ground looking like they lost a fight with time and humidity. This sword came out looking like it had a spa membership. Its preservation likely involved the bronze composition, the tight scabbard, tomb conditions, and surface chemistry, not magic. But the effect is still stunning. It feels like ancient metallurgy leaned across the centuries and said, "Yes, we knew what we were doing. Please stop acting surprised." 20. The Baltic Sea. Anomaly. The Baltic Sea anomaly is an object or formation detected on the seafloor in 2011 by a Swedish diving team. And because its sonar image looked vaguely like the Millennium Falcon from Star Wars, the internet immediately lost all adult supervision. Reports claimed strange features, unusual angles, and even equipment interference, which added rocket fuel to the mystery. But sonar images can be deceptive, and many experts suggest the anomaly is likely a natural geological formation, perhaps glacially shaped rock. The problem is that the image is just weird enough to keep people arguing. It sits on the seafloor like a giant cosmic pancake, surrounded by rumors, blurry data, and wishful thinking in scuba gear. Is it an alien spacecraft? Almost certainly not. Is it a perfect example of how humans see spaceships and rocks? Oh, absolutely. 21. Scottish carved stone balls. Across Scotland, archaeologists have found hundreds of carved stone balls from the Neolithic period, often beautifully symmetrical, sometimes covered in knobs, spirals, circles, or geometric designs. They are small enough to hold, too carefully made to dismiss, and too mysterious to explain without someone eventually saying, maybe ritual. Which, to be fair, is archaeology's polite emergency button. The balls do not clearly work as weapons, weights, tools, or toys, though all those ideas have been suggested. Their distribution suggests social meaning, perhaps identity, status, exchange, ceremony, or teaching geometry before geometry had a public relations department. Some are so precise that modern viewers assume advanced technology, but patience and skill are also technologies. The frustrating part is that they feel important. Someone spent serious time making these objects. We just arrived 5,000 years late and missed the PowerPoint presentation. 22. Tecaxic-Calixtlahuaca. Head. The Tecaxic-Calixtlahuaca head is a small terracotta head found in Mexico, and the controversy is simple. It looks Roman. More specifically, it resembles a bearded male head in a style linked to the ancient Mediterranean, but it was reportedly found in a pre-Columbian archaeological context. If that context is secure, the implications are wild. Did a Roman-era object somehow cross the Atlantic before Columbus? Was it traded through unknown routes? Did it arrive later and get mixed into the site? Was the excavation context misunderstood? These are not small questions. They are the kind of questions that make historians rub their temples and whisper, "Please let this be contamination." The head itself is tiny, but the argument around it is enormous. Sometimes history does not need a giant monument to cause chaos. Sometimes all it needs is one suspicious little face. 23. Dispilio. Tablet. The Dispilio tablet is a wooden object found near a lakeside settlement in northern Greece, with engraved marks that may be more than 7,000 years old. Since wood usually does not survive unless conditions are unusually kind, the tablet already feels like it escaped time through a loophole. The marks have been interpreted by some as an early form of symbolic communication, maybe even proto-writing, though that is debated. Mainstream scholars are careful, because not every ancient scratches a sentence. Sometimes a mark is counting, ownership, ritual notation, decoration, or a person 7,000 years ago testing whether their new sharp tool worked. Still, the possibility is thrilling. If those signs represent structured communication, they push us toward a much richer view of Neolithic Europe. The tablet does not shout its meaning. It just quietly sits there, making the invention of writing look less tidy than textbooks promised. 24. The Sabu disc. The Sabu disc was found in an ancient Egyptian tomb and looks like something that should be attached to a machine, not placed in a burial from around 5,000 years ago. It is made of delicate stone and has a strange circular shape with 3 curved lobes, almost like a propeller, turbine part, or fancy alien serving tray. The obvious problem is material. It is fragile. If you tried to use it as a mechanical part, it would probably break and embarrass everyone involved. So archaeologists usually interpret it as a ritual object, ceremonial vessel, elite item, or symbolic form whose meaning is now lost. But visually, it is deeply unfair. It looks engineered. It looks modern. It looks like ancient Egypt briefly opened a design studio called Objects That Will Confuse Future People. Whatever its purpose, it proves that Egyptian craftsmanship could be both elegant and aggressively mysterious. 25. Bimetallic swords of the Scythians. The Scythians were nomadic warriors of the Eurasian steppe, famous for horses, archery, gold, and a lifestyle that made settled empires extremely nervous. Some ancient steppe weapons show sophisticated metalworking, including techniques that combine different metals or different carbon qualities in ways that improve strength, flexibility, and cutting ability. The mysterious part is not that ancient smiths were magical. It is that they were often far more experimental and skilled than the lazy stereotype of primitive warriors allows. When a blade appears to use contrasting metal properties with purpose, it forces us to imagine workshops, trade knowledge, repeated testing, and craftspeople who knew exactly what failed in battle because failure had very sharp consequences. These swords are not proof of impossible technology, but they are a reminder that ancient metallurgy was not a side quest. It was survival, status, and science with blood on the invoice. 26. Los Lunas Decalogue. Stone. The Los Lunas Decalogue stone is a large boulder in New Mexico covered with an inscription that resembles an abbreviated version of the Ten Commandments in a form of Hebrew script. That sounds explosive because if ancient Hebrew writing were genuinely present in pre-Columbian North America, history books would need a very awkward emergency meeting. But the stone is heavily disputed. Many scholars suspect it is not ancient at all, possibly a modern or historic carving, because the context is weak and the implications are too big to accept without strong evidence. Still, the inscription is there, carved into stone, staring at everyone like it enjoys the argument. Believers see proof of ancient transoceanic contact. Skeptics see a clever fake, a religious carving, or a misunderstanding. The boulder is basically a comment section in rock form, loud, stubborn, and impossible to fully calm down. 27. Rongorongo. Script. Rongorongo is one of the saddest and most fascinating writing mysteries in the world. On Easter Island, also called Rapa Nui, wooden tablets were carved with lines of strange glyphs. Humans, animals, plants, shapes, and symbols arranged in a distinctive reverse reading pattern. It may be the only independent writing system developed in Oceania, but by the time outsiders seriously tried to understand it, the knowledge was already collapsing under the pressure of disease, slavery raids, colonial disruption, and cultural destruction. People who may have been able to read it were gone, silenced, or no longer teaching it. Today, only a couple dozen authentic texts survive, and no translation is universally accepted. Rongorongo is not just a puzzle, it is a wound. A library shrunk to wooden fragments with the key buried alongside the people who deserved far better than history gave them. 28. The Dashka Stone. The Dashka Stone, also called the Map of the Creator in some sensational versions, is a large stone slab reportedly found in Russia that some claim shows a three-dimensional map of the Ural region, complete with channels, elevations, and engineered-looking details. The dramatic version says it is ancient beyond belief and possibly evidence of a lost advanced civilization. The cautious version says the claims are poorly supported, the dating is controversial, and the object has never earned the kind of broad scholarly acceptance required before we start rewriting human history with a rock slab. But as a story, it has all the right ingredients. A huge stone, map-like patterns, Russian mystery energy, and enough ambiguity to keep conspiracy engines humming. It might be geological, misinterpreted, modern, or simply less spectacular than advertised. But it perfectly shows how quickly a strange stone can become a civilization in people's imagination. 29. The Lady of the Spiked Throne. The Lady of the Spiked Throne is a strange artifact from the Indus Valley world, one of the great Bronze Age civilizations that still refuses to explain itself properly. The object appears to show a seated figure on a dramatic spiked or horned throne, with other figures nearby, sometimes interpreted as people in a boat or in a ritual scene involving a bull-headed element. The problem is context. The Indus script remains undeciphered, so their mythology, political titles, and ritual meanings are mostly locked away. We can see cities, seals, weights, drainage systems, trade, and art, but the stories behind them are maddeningly quiet. This artifact feels like a snapshot from a myth we cannot read. Is it a goddess? A ruler? A ritual performance? A symbolic journey? We are basically watching one frame from an ancient movie with no subtitles and pretending that is fine. 30. The Winnipesaukee Mystery Stone. The Winnipesaukee Mystery Stone was found in New Hampshire in the 19th century, and it looks like an egg-shaped stone covered with carvings, faces, symbols, geometric forms, and images that seem intentional but refuse easy interpretation. Even stranger, the stone's material may not match the immediate local area, which raises the annoying question of how it got there. Was it made by indigenous artists? Was it a ceremonial object, a treaty marker, a charm, a 19th century fake? The discovery story is not as clean as archaeologists would like, because of course it is not. Mystery artifacts love messy paperwork. The stone has holes drilled through it, and some have argued those holes look suspiciously modern. So we are left with an object that may be ancient, historic, symbolic, fraudulent, or all tangled up in a century of wishful thinking. It is small, smooth, and extremely uncooperative. 31. Emerald Buddha. The Emerald Buddha is one of Thailand's most sacred religious images, but despite the name, it is not made of emerald. It is carved from green jade or a similar stone, which is already a reminder that famous names are sometimes just ancient marketing departments doing their best. The statue's early history is wrapped in legend, with stories placing it in India, Sri Lanka, Cambodia, Laos, and northern Thailand before it eventually became central to Thai kingship and religious identity. What we know for certain is much later than what tradition claims, and the gaps are enormous. Its clothing is changed seasonally by the Thai king, making it not just an artwork but a living symbol of state, faith, and legitimacy. The mystery is not what is it. The mystery is how much of its origin story is history, politics, devotion, and legend, braided so tightly no one can untangle it without being rude. 32. Grave Creek Stone. The Grave Creek Stone is a small sandstone disc reportedly found in a burial mound in what is now West Virginia in the 19th century. It bears strange marks that some people claimed were ancient writing, possibly from distant Old World cultures. And that, naturally, turned a tiny object into a very loud problem. The stone became part of debates about who built the mounds, a topic that was already poisoned by racist 19th century myths denying indigenous peoples credit for their own monumental achievements. Many scholars now regard the stone as suspicious, possibly a forgery, because the inscription does not convincingly match any known ancient script, and the discovery context is questionable. But its story matters. It shows how mystery artifacts can be used badly, not just to ask questions but to steal credit. Sometimes the real mystery is not the object. It is why people wanted it to mean the wrong thing. 33. The Dropa Stones. The Dropa Stones are the grand finale of suspicious artifact lore. Supposedly hundreds of stone discs found in Himalayan caves, covered in tiny spiral markings that allegedly told the story of aliens crash landing on Earth 12,000 years ago. It is a fantastic tale. It has caves, strange skeletons, lost professors, secret translations, missing artifacts, and extraterrestrial refugees who apparently filed their disaster report on decorative stone vinyl records. The problem is that the evidence collapses faster than a cheap folding chair. The museums do not have the discs. The key researchers are hard to verify. The story appears to grow more elaborate with retellings. In other words, it is almost certainly a hoax or modern legend. But it survives because it is beautifully structured for belief. It gives people a lost world, a hidden truth, and a cosmic tragedy. Bad archaeology, maybe. Great campfire story, definitely. So now I want a real fight in the comments. Which artifact on this list is the most convincing mystery, and which one is total nonsense wearing an archaeology badge? And be specific, because aliens did it is not an argument. It is a screensaver. Also, what artifact did we criminally forget to include? Drop the name below, like the video if your brain feels slightly damaged, and subscribe for more history that refuses to behave.